Hey, it's Nancy from Nancy True Homes. I am a real estate agent here in northern New Jersey, and in my near 20 years of business, I have sold over $500 million in real estate. I talk a lot about this idea that living in America in so many ways is a great privilege because we have this thing called a 30-year fixed mortgage, which we call the middle class hedge, right? What it does is it allows you as an individual, as a family, to purchase a home and then essentially lock that nominal payment down for 30 years, which basically means that you're locking the cost of living for you for 30 years. Now, you and I both know that if you rent a property, at some point, your rent probably goes up, whether it's year over year, whether it's you outgrow the rental place and you have to get something more expensive, but you're not essentially in control of your cost of living because the landlord has the ability to increase that cost. And then it was very interesting because someone actually said to me the other day, well, what's so great about locking in my cost of living for 30 years? And I was like, why wouldn't that be something that everybody wanted? And then I thought to myself, oh, well, let's look at this and why is it important? In New Jersey, since the year 2000, so from 2000 to 25, we have averaged a salary increase or a wage increase for, all U.S. workers. For all New Jersey workers. This is workers that do full-time, workers that do part-time, hourly salary. On average, the New Jersey worker gets a salary increase of 3.3% a year. That's what it's averaged out to be since 2000. Now, it's very interesting because that to me means that if I have a salary today in 2025 of $85,190, now the reason why I chose that number, $85,190, is because that is also sort of the average salary right now of all workers in New Jersey. Same context, full-time, part-time, hourly salary, right? If that is my starting salary in, 2025, that means at an average of 3.3% increase year over year, that in 30 years, which will be at this point 2054, in 30 years, my salary will be $218,423. So that's some pretty significant growth because that is how it averages out, 3.3% a year, right? And the reason why I chose 30 years is because if I purchase a house today, then I'm going to have a 30-year fixed mortgage. And my nominal payment, so let's pretend it is a $500,000 house and you're putting 20% down and you're going to carry a $400,000 mortgage, right? Today's interest rate that I happen to be getting, pluck it from the air, 6.48%, for instance. Actually, I think I did a check this morning and that seems to be sort of the going number for interest rate today. So that makes my principal and interest payment for my $400,000 loan to be $2,533 a month. This does not include your taxes. This does not include your insurance because those are different things and those numbers do change as taxes change, or if you choose to change your insurance, or if you, end up needing your insurance and your insurance goes up. You can also negotiate your insurance down. Those are numbers that are malleable. But the numbers that are not malleable and the cost of your home is really the principal and interest. And that equals $2,533 a month. If I multiply that by 12, that gives me $30,276. So that means that for a year, for the next 30 years, I'll be giving the bank $30,276. Now, don't forget, this is not determined by whether or not I choose to refinance. This is just, let's pretend that I never refinance and I just, stick with my 6.48. Well, so in the year 2025, that yearly, number that I pay in principal and interest is about 35.5% of my salary, right? Because I have an 85,190. So that's about 35% of my salary. So the interesting thing is I look at this and I think to myself, well, if my salary goes up by 3.3% every year, then by 2026, I'm going to be making 88,000. And at that point, that monthly payment is no longer 35%, it's 34% of my salary. And by the time I hit the year 2035, I'm going to be making about 118,000, right? And at that point, the percentage of that, 30,276 of my salary turns into more like 26%. And I can keep going. Like, you have to think about it as, you're locking in your cost of living, but your salary is not necessarily locked in, especially if you're starting at the age of, a postgraduate and you're graduating from, grad school or college or trade school, whatever it is that you're coming out from, and your starting salary today is is about 85,000. So that means that given this set of, parameters, by 2054, which is 30 years from now, right? I'll be making 218, 423. And at that point, don't forget, my monthly payment for the year still is 30,276, which means at that point, my principal and interest is only about 13%, give or take 13 to 14% of my salary, which means that as I move in the world, and by the way, this is not assuming that you don't, change jobs, right? Like, there are people I know who change jobs, or actually sometimes people get promotions and then you have larger salary bumps other than, 3.3%. Of course, you have to, account for, there are people sometimes when you do get laid off and then you have to get another job and then perhaps your salary might change. But, this is looking at average numbers. I look at this and I think to myself, sure, the first year I might be paying 30 to 35% of my income towards my housing. But by the time my 30 years is done, assuming that I don't, like I said, refi or change jobs or anything, I'm down to about 13, 14% of my salary is going towards housing. This is the secret. This is the magic, because that extra money then turns into money for my savings, turns into money for me to enjoy, turns into money for me to handle the rest of the cost of living that exists in this world. And that is the magic of that 30-year fixed mortgage and why people buy houses. It's to lock in that cost of living. And the sad truth is, the sooner you start, the longer you can have that. We're not even going to talk about all the amazing things that go with it, right? How about things like, as your earning potential increases over time, your house also appreciates. So you've got that growth aspect, which isn't the case if you're renting. We all know that you can't outsave the real estate market. The real estate market is going to grow, and that's how you grow in equity. We all know that paying yourself to rent your own home from yourself is better than paying a landlord. In other words, we all know it's better to own than to rent. And last but not least, we all know that in the end, just if you're worried about your housing prices, don't sell in a market when the cycle goes down. And in the end, we all know that you have a nest egg that you can then sell at the end or leave to a family member so that they can continue to appreciate the equity growth in the home. Okay, all right. So I think you guys get the idea. It was an interesting sort of moment for me to think about today. Listen, for those of you that are interested, we are still planning for the first week of October. We will be running our Homeownership Bootcamp, and we'll be doing it in Union, New Jersey, which is a great place, right? Great space, by the way. So if you have any questions about that, you are always welcome to reach out to me. Feel free to shoot me a text on my direct cell phone, which is 917-992-3098. And I just am so very much looking forward to talking to you guys in a few days or so about something else that comes to my mind about real estate. All right, guys, see you next week.